It's that nerd Ryan here, and I'm sorry I'm late to the party. I know the first episode of The Mandalorian has already premiered, but as of the day of recording this, it comes out tomorrow for me. So I figured what better way than to talk about The Mandalorian up until Season 3 and give my full thoughts on it. I haven't given a show review yet. I might have reviewed Season 2. I don't believe I had. And, hey, little guy. Yeah, I feel like I should do that before Season 3 comes out. So, the last 2 weeks, and today especially, I watched all the way through Seasons 1 and 2 of The Mandalorian. I also watched the last 3 episodes of the Book of Boba Fett, just for refresh and context going into Season 3. So, let's get into it. So I distinctly remember watching the first episode of Season 1 when it came out. Due to the fact that I had some very majorly bad virus that was possibly COVID, before COVID, causing me to stay home the day of the release. I remember not being able to watch it right away because Disney Plus did not realize how many people were going to watch the show, and it kept crashing. And I had to watch Inspector Gadget until the problem was fixed. And then watching the first episode and being blown away. The first episode just kind of gives us the premise of who the Mandalorian is. He is a bounty hunter. We see him take in the Mithril as his first bounty on screen. See him fly the Razor Crest, fight a giant monster to get off the Razor Crest, and get sent on his first mission, where he meets Queel and learns how to ride a Borg. And he rides it to a village that is holding a person that is the bounty. And he teams up with a droid who he does not like droids. They team up and go and find the bounty, which ends up being the child. They go, and Mando ends up killing IG-11 to get the child. I'm not going to go, I just realized if I go play-by-play on this entire show, we'll be here for about 45 minutes when you could be watching the first episode of Season 3 or getting ready for tomorrow for Episode 2. But yeah, so we get the first arc where after that he tries to turn in the child, then realizes he did wrong. We also see him fight some Jawas and fight the crime syndicate on Navarro. In that he runs away. Then we get a 3-part of him basically kind of, we get to see like what his past was like, what his future could be like, and another of like kind of what his past could have been. And what I mean by that is like we get the episode that introduces Cara Dune, where we get like a peaceful village defending themselves against a band of pirates, and we get to see kind of like what the Mandalorian and the child's life could be like if there was no bounty or running or violence or anything like that. Then we get the episode of The Gunslinger that shows us a new trainee and introduces us to Fennec Shand, and kind of shows him showing the ropes to somebody, only to get betrayed in the end. And then we get the episode with the Mandalorian's old crew, who try to betray him, but he ends up on top at the end, kind of showing what his past really was like. Then we get him getting... Sorry, I keep getting texts from people. Keeps happening. Anyways... he goes back to Navarro to work with Grief, who is played by Carl Weathers. They go and try to reconcile to get the bounty off of the child. They find out that he has force healing powers, along with other force powers. We find force powers in the second episode. But yeah. anyways, we get introduced to Moff Gideon, who wants the child for experiments. Then the group fights, we lose Queel, and we lose IG-11, but the group wins by the end of the day. And that is the end of Season 1. I really liked Season 1 a lot. I thought it was a great introduction of The Mandalorian, and of just this era, the New Republic era of Star Wars, and just a great introduction to Disney television. Star Wars television. What was kind of cool is these were all original characters. We only got like a 1-second cameo of a established character, and we didn't even know if that was that character yet. I remember like people kind of making jokes at the beginning, which it was kind of true, was we had knockoff Boba Fett and knockoff IG-88 and knockoff Yoda, and just like it was kind of like, originally looking at it, like a dollar bin of Star Wars toys that like were made by like a Mexican knockoff company compared to like the known Star Wars characters. But what's funny is these characters have been more appreciated now than what Disney has done with some of the Star Wars characters already. Like, if you were to call Grief Karga like Bargain Bin Lando, I think people prefer Grief Karga over Lando and Solo and what they did with Lando and Rise of Skywalker, at least for me. Or you look at Grogu, who everybody loves Grogu more than Yoda. And I made my first Star Wars video about 4 or 5 years ago saying how Jango Fett was my favorite Star Wars character. That was replaced by Din Djarin, who was originally a knockoff of Boba Fett in that mindset. So it's kind of funny that like they used non-established characters in this first season, and they've become just as big household names as Darth Vader, Boba Fett, Luke Skywalker, stuff like that. There wasn't that many flaws that I thought in this first season. I thought that it was a pretty well-written story. I thought that it was great to have like these characters. I did feel weird about the gunslinger. I forgot the character's name, but I get he was kind of supposed to be unlikable and cocky and stuff like that, but I just felt like it was upplayed too much. Now we get to Season 2. Season 2, in my opinion, is about as good as Season 1, just a little less, but this is kind of Din has a mission to return the child to its kind. Now, initially when they said that, I thought we were going to finally see Yoda's home planet. But we did not. The own kind means Jedi. So the first episode we see Din returning to Tatooine to retrieve, or to meet a Mandalorian who ends up being Cobb Vanth, who there were so many times in this season where I like squealed or like jumped up and down, and if you guys remember my ex, her and I watched all of Season 2 together, and she kept looking at me like, you need to contain yourself. Because, I mean, we got like the Cobb Vanth moment, and it was like, oh my god, I remember Aftermath was my first Star Wars book that I read, and we got Cobb Vanth. And then the Crate Dragon, and then revealing Boba Fett at the end of that was great. Episode 2 was getting stuck on this ice planet with the frog, Grogu eating frog eggs, and kind of being a menace in this episode. What was great was the child was being a menace, just eating eggs, causing spiders to like kind of attack because of that. We have the introduction of Dave Filoni and the two New Republic pilots. I thought that intro was kind of weird, like, not the intro of them like chasing down Din, but like them rescuing him from the spiders. It felt like it was trying to be like that like cool buddy cop moment of like, yeah, we just took out the enemy, and like holstering their gun. I was like, okay, that's a little weird. If it's setting up Rangers of the High Republic, I'm fine with that. Now we don't know if that's even going to be a thing. I don't think it is actually anymore. But yeah, then the third episode, we're on Trask, which I initially thought was Mon Cala in my second viewing. I forgot they said it was Trask. And again, with the was seeing Bo-Katan and Casca Reeves and Axe Wolves. Obviously, Bo-Katan was the big one that I was excited for. Had some great action. And we realized that she's looking for the Darksaber, even though she was the last one to hold it before Gideon. And then she tells Din to go find Ahsoka Tano, which, even thinking about that right now, gives me chills. I think I was almost in tears when they said that name in the show. And I was like, oh my god. So then the next episode, we take a detour back to Navarro in what I think is probably my favorite episode, or one of the most fun episodes, where Din has to get the Razor Crest repaired, and he helps Kara and Greef take out an old Imperial base, where we find out that they are experimenting to make clones. We don't know if it's supposed to be Snow clones or Palpatine clones. I have a feeling it's going to be something else that will be explored in Season 3. But yeah, or in Ahsoka. But yeah, and we get this almost like roller coaster ride of a chase scene, which is so fun to watch. Then we get to Ahsoka's episode, which we learn the child's name is Grogu, and we learn that he was at the Jedi Temple during Order 66, and we also learn that Ahsoka is looking for Grand Admiral Thrawn. Din also picks up a new weapon, being a Beskar staff, or pike, or whatever you want to call it, and he tries to give Grogu to Ahsoka. Ahsoka tells him to go to a different planet where he sits on a rock for a Jedi to find him. Then we go to that planet, which is Tython, where we are officially reintroduced to Boba Fett. Which, oh my god, this episode alone was just phenomenal. A great reintroduction to Boba Fett. And just a great action episode. And then Grogu gets stolen, and in my opinion, what's worse, and I literally cried my first viewing, was the Razor Crest getting destroyed. Yeah, that was rough, because that was one of my favorite ships. I actually have it sitting up here in Lego form next to the Slave One and the Millennium Falcon. So yeah, it's a very important ship to me. But yeah, so then Din ends up looking for Miggs Mayfeld to help find where Moff Gideon's cruiser is. And in doing so, he has to show his face. And this episode also had another great part. I thought Miggs' character, when I first heard Mayfeld, I was like, oh, I didn't really like Miggs in the first season. So I was like, oh, great, now we're going to have this. But this episode made me 180 on his character and really love him. Had great motivations, had great, he ended up being, yeah, he was a criminal, but he was honestly a good person, and I hope we get Bill Burr in the third season. But, just, there's a part where he's being his cocky self at the beginning. He's like, yeah, you know what, whatever helps us sleep at night. I mean, you'd fight for the Empire, fight for the New Republic, doesn't matter, as long as you could sleep at night, and, kind of just being a jerk about it. And then making fun of Mando having to wear a helmet and being like, well, what's the rule? You can't remove your helmet or we can't see your face, because that's two completely different things, and blah, blah, blah. And at the end of the episode, after Din has to take off the helmet and has to keep it off to, not blow their cover, Miggs first thing he does after he reveals, like, he is upset with the Empire and kills the Imperial officer that caused many of his friends to get killed, the first thing he says is, "Put this on, I didn't see your face." Which I was like, that's great. And then they get rescued by Boba, and he blows up the entire base in one shot. And the first thing he says is, "Now I can sleep tonight." And I'm like, that like won me over on him. I'm like, yeah, he's honestly a lot better of a character than I figured. Then after that, we got the finale, which was great. It was them taking over the Imperial cruiser, Din fighting Moff Gideon and getting the Darksaber, and all the drama behind that that's setting up now. And then we get Luke coming to rescue Grogu. When I first saw the X-Wing fly in, I thought it was one of the New Republic people. Then I saw R2, and it hit me. I was so happy to see Luke, and so devastated to see Luke at the same time. I loved that he came in to save the day. I was so happy that we got Luke Skywalker in his prime, doing amazing things, but at the same time, I realized that this was going to be goodbye for Grogu. I think when I saw him turn on the green lightsaber, I went into tears. And my ex did too, because she knew what was going on. And I just remember looking over, and we're bawling our eyes out because we know that those two are going to be separated. And Season 2 was left very bittersweet on me until Book of Boba Fett. Because I thought it was a great story, but I didn't want to see those two separated. And then the implication of Grogu staying with Luke, meaning that he would die when Ben turned to Kylo Ren. It was just so hard to watch. And this, like I said, this season was just as great as Season 1. I said not as good, but now talking through it, it is better than Season 1. Better writing, better action, better places. And oh my god, just a devastating ending. So for Book of Boba Fett, I will do a full review on Book of Boba Fett, but I do want to look at Din's arc in this. Because for the last 3 episodes, Din's in it. He is the focus of the 5th episode, and semi-focus of the 6th episode. Grogu's main focus of the 6th episode. And then him and the 3 of them and Boba share the focus. Let's ignore the fact that this is Book of Boba Fett and not The Mandalorian. I liked seeing this arc of Din feeling hopeless without Grogu and going back to his old ways and everything like that. Do I wish that it was a longer time period of like us seeing them separated? I do. But at the same time, it cheered me up a lot and made me like the ending of Season 2 a little bit more, knowing that those two are not going to be separated. I also liked kind of the fact that like we kind of got to see what the Armorer and what Paz Vizsla think of the whole situation of him carrying the Darksaber and taking off his helmet. But I also liked that we also got to see his replacement of a ship. I was hoping for another Razor Crest, but I like the idea of the N1. I like that it's kind of a sports car sense, but at the same time, it feels weird that it's not the Razor Crest. Grogu's focal, I love seeing Luke training him, in kind of that reverse of Yoda training Luke. I also liked the reveal of the Jedi Temple and stuff like that. And just hearing the pain in Din's voice about how much he misses Grogu is heartbreaking. But what I also didn't really care for was the fact that Luke kind of gave him Grogu a loaded choice, as the way he talked about it. Because, like, kind of what he says about Din is also about himself, when you think about it. So he's like, okay, your friend the Mandalorian made this for you, but I have Yoda's lightsaber. So you can choose between the Mandalorian or me. And where he goes, if you choose me, you can become my first student, and I will train you to be a great Jedi. If you choose the Mandalorian, you cannot be a Jedi, but just remember that a moment in your life is a lifetime for somebody else. And which I understand the logic there, but also at the same time, Luke is human too. Grogu will outlive Luke. At this point, Luke is like in his early 30s, late 20s. So Luke, with the Force, has a good maybe, we don't know how long humans can usually live being Force sensitive, but let's just generously say Luke's got about 50 more years of being able to train Grogu. So Grogu would be 100, and if we think about that, that means he would still be a child or in that Padawan age. So Luke would not be able to finish Grogu's training. You would have to think maybe Ben Solo or maybe somebody else down the line would have to help finish Grogu's training. But the thing with... So him saying that about Din is also him saying that about himself. Which that was a flaw in my head. Was like, okay, Luke, yeah, you're not going to be able to finish Grogu's training either. And you're not going to be able to train everybody else as you train Grogu, because Jedi can only take on one apprentice at a time. But yeah, if he was trying to make it like the original Jedi Order, which he probably was. Anyway, so then we get to the finale, and I'm going to try to ignore all of Boba Fett's parts, because there is... there was a moment where I'll just say it really quick, I was watching and I go, it doesn't matter what you think of Disney taking over Star Wars, it doesn't matter what you think of the show Book of Boba Fett, it doesn't matter what you think about Star Wars. One of the most badass TV moments is Boba Fett riding a Rancor. It's just so cool. But yeah, no, we get I'm just going to talk about one part here, and it's when Grogu and Din reunite. I was watching it this morning, and it brought me to tears of that, like, connection of, like, he's like, hey buddy, I'm so happy that you're with us, and it's just so, or he's like, but you gotta keep your head low, buddy, I've missed you so much, and Grogu just jumps up like that and hugs him, and, like, grabs at his helmet. He's like, okay, you gotta stay down, buddy, you got the shirt, I'm so happy that you got the shirt, and, like, everything like that connection of, like, just everything brought me to tears. But yeah, and I did review Book of Boba Fett, so you can check out that review. But other than that, thank you guys for watching. Make sure you leave a like, comment, subscribe, ring that bell, and follow me on all my social media down below. It's that Nerd Ryan telling you.